Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. On this episode, we're going to talk about the late 80s rock scene. We'll talk about Warrant. Do we think that they helped kill off that music scene in the late 80s, early 90s? And we'll also take a deep dive on their album, Dog Eat Dog. Lots to cover in this episode. I think you guys are going to really enjoy it. So let's jump in and let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of the Rock Experience with Mike Brunn. Today, I'm excited. We have LaRussa Fest 2024 with me today. Both Vincent and Peter LaRussa, brothers. How you guys doing?
Doing good, Mike. Thanks for having me on once again.
Yes.
I was letting him speak first because I normally speak all the time because you always say you have me on. So,
Well, what a kind older brother you are.
try to be friendly.
We were talking about this a little bit, Vin, while you were getting set up. Pete, the last time you were on the show was what, 2022, you said?
Yes, I looked earlier. It was September of 2022 for it was the top 10 songs sung by, I think it was sung by Peter Criss, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
So,
that was fun. And then in 2020, didn't we do like the top 10 concerts we've been to together?
top 10 favorite concerts. Yes.
Yes. All right. So I was saying, it seems like you're on at least every 2 years. So I said I was going to send the invite out for 2026, and you said, well, maybe we could do something sooner. So, and I would definitely welcome that. So, and then unfortunately for all the listeners and viewers, Vincent, you're back yet again. This is like number 500. So,
Don't be jealous.
I know. Don't be jealous. But now I'm excited for this because, Vin, what we've been doing is kind of going over albums, different bands. Of course, Vincent always got to get his drink out.
So the LaRussas always have to have their nice cold drinks.
Oh man, look at this. I'm double teamed by LaRussas with drinks and I don't have one. But no, we've been going through different albums, both Kiss and non-Kiss related. And I said I wanted to get some people who've been on the show before to kind of come back on and talk about albums and talk about bands that maybe we don't know or maybe we do know. And I said, hey, let's get your brother back on. And we said, hey, Pete, we're going to let you pick an artist and pick an album. So, today we're going to talk about Warrant, Dog Eat Dog. I want to talk a bit about Warrant just in general, but I guess just as a starting point, Pete, what made you decide to go with Warrant as a band that you were going to choose?
So I initially chose some other albums that I had in mind, which I did discuss with my brother, but inevitably I decided to go with Warrant, Dog Eat Dog, because my brother did get me into Warrant as early as April 1989 when he purchased Dirty Rotten.
Sure, it wasn't April 2031.
I see what you did there.
That was good.
That was good.
Good.
But anyway, yeah. So he purchased the vinyl, the original vinyl pressing of Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich for me for my 13th birthday in 1989. I had no idea who Warrant was. It was one of those things where he bought it for me as a birthday gift and said, I seen this band. I think you're really going to like them. So that was one of my reasons because of, there it is. There's the original pressing.
Very nice. Yeah, I think I have the same thing with the same hype sticker.
Yeah. And I remember, I think it was Vincent who told me, he's like, yeah, if you pull back the cellophane, you'll see there was like a woman was actually on the ear of that. I forget the
I don't think I knew that, really.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I still have mine with the cellophane and the hype sticker covering it.
Yeah. If you look at it, there's like basically like a naked woman in its ear.
Okay, interesting. I don't remember that.
Yeah, and you could still see it very well on current pressings by Music on Vinyl that don't have the hype
Okay.
sticker. So that's remained. That was a little Easter egg for that album cover in case people didn't know about it. I thought that was pretty widely known. But so
Maybe I just
that's
forgot it, but either
Yeah, if
way,
you didn't mention that, I wouldn't have never remembered that.
yeah, I did not remember that. So I'm glad you remember you mentioned it.
the Babar memory that I have.
Mm.
So,
Yeah.
so that was one reason, and I also thought a second reason that might be fun for this discussion is because of the whole thing about Warrant releasing an album called Dog Eat Dog, and then around a year later we had the band Dog Eat Dog release their first release, which was an EP called Warrant.
Yep.
So, and I think I've listened to a few other podcasts that have covered this album,
Okay.
and they'll make a mention about this, and it's usually kind of like the same narrative where it's people were confused. Somehow, some people bought Dog Eat Dog's EP instead of Warrant. See, and you're raising your hand, and I'm like, I can't help but say this, and it's not to be insulting or anything, but I just truly don't understand it, I guess, because of two factors. But I guess this is why I wanted to bring this one to the table, because I do have a little bit of personal experience. Because for one thing, I was and still am a fan of New York hardcore and hardcore and punk music in general. I was in the whole New York hardcore scene for a while. I played in numerous bands. Like anyone who listens and watches your show that has any clue about hardcore music, New York hardcore, they're gonna know who Dog Eat Dog is. So, for one thing, I did buy the Dog Eat Dog
Yep. Nice.
Warrant CD at
Both
Record
CD
Factory
and
back in the
cassette.
day.
Nice.
Well, the cassette happened to fall in my hands because somebody gave me their entire cassette collection and it happened to be in there. And this is
Okay.
actually a promo, it's a cutout because they
Nice.
worked for Roadrunner Records.
Mm-hmm.
So, and plus, I was in a band that my brother actually recorded 30 years ago in 1994. I was in a hardcore band called Purge, and we happened to open for Dog Eat Dog at Lemoore. So I just thought it would be kind of fun. And unlike some other shows that have talked about this show, I mean, that have talked about this album, you actually have somebody who has a little bit of a personal experience with the other side of the Dog Eat Dog thing, the other side of the crane, if you will.
Yeah.
And, and Dog Eat Dog is kind of no stranger to a little bit of, I don't really want to say controversy, because, you read into this and, they named their EP Warrant basically as like, hey, Warrant just released an album last year called Dog Eat Dog. Let's name our EP Warrant. It was, I don't know, it wasn't like some like malicious thing that they just decided to do, or as
everything I've read, they just
like
thought
that.
it was like funny.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I think it was all in like good humor and
Right.
jest and stuff like that. So, but then they released their first full length album, which I'll show here. It's called All Borough Kings, and then soon enough, like later on, then another hardcore band steps in that was around for a long time called Leeway, and on their hype sticker it says the real All Borough Kings. It's just there's like a lot of silliness.
Right,
So this
right.
is all just to say that there was a bit of kind of silliness going on with this whole Dog Eat Dog thing, and I just thought it would be fun to bring some of this to the table. And Dog Eat Dog had some relatively good success. I mean, they released this track, No Fronts, and while they didn't have huge mainstream success here in the States, this actually hit number 9 in the UK this summer here. So they had some really decent popularity overseas. Right. So I just wanted to bring those little facts to the table, where I think some people might look at Dog Eat Dog as kind of like a throwaway band when it's in this context talking about Warrant. Right. So I just thought it'd be fun to bring a little bit of that.
That was enlightening to me, Pete, because, look, I got into Warrant and Vin, you were there with us. We saw Paul Stanley in '89 and Warrant opened up the shows, right? And I had no clue who Warrant was at that time. And I instantly was like, damn, I like this band. And I got hooked instantly. I think I bought Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich then before you, because I actually went to see Warrant again open up for Eddie Money in April at the Palladium. So April of '89, it was me, my wife, one other woman there who knew who Warrant was, and 1,000 people who had not a freaking clue who Warrant was. It was literally
Hey.
like no man, they did not know what
And
name.
189, 189. My JNR sticker has on
Oh,
it.
okay. Oh, you bought
189.
it for your brother in April, right? So
Yeah.
obviously we must
Yeah.
have both bought the
Ah,
album right away, right? Although just because the sticker's dated 189, you could have bought it a few months later.
come on,
But
you know
either
me
way,
back in the day. I
yes,
was JNR. Probably
no,
if
you're
I,
right.
if I like something, I
You're
can't guarantee it. I
absolutely
got it in January of
no.
'89.
It's
But
probably by February we both
when
had
did we
the
see
album.
Paul Stanley?
It
When was it?
was February of '89. I think it was like February
Right.
13th, 12th,
I'm
11th, like
sure
around that.
within that week I bought the record because
Yeah,
I remember liking them right away and I went to get the record.
yeah, both of us.
Yeah.
Like I said, I saw them again in 6 to 8 weeks later in the city. Um, and I actually recorded that show. And again, it's funny listening back to that and hearing Janie talk about, hey, we're going to release the single Heaven in a few weeks. And if this song doesn't hit well, I'll be flipping burgers again. So, I mean, they were nobodies. I then saw them in August of '89 in a headlining show. And I bring up all of this because clearly I saw them 4 times in a matter of 7 months, 6 months. I instantly became a big fan of Warrant. Yet for some reason, when this album came out, and I saw them on the Cherry Pie tour, whatever, even though I hated that damn song, but I saw them on that tour. But when this album came out, I just wasn't aware of it. And I wasn't aware of it for about a year or so. And you've been bringing up the whole dog eat dog thing, Pete. And I walk into a record store and I'm like, let me see about Warrant here. And they have the Dog Eat Dog CD in the Warrant section. I'm like, oh, a new Warrant album. And I didn't even look. I just literally picked it up, brought it to the counter, and paid for it and left. Okay. And I'm like, oh, I'm so excited. I'm going to hear a new Warrant album. But now this is a year after it came out. So I don't know what I wasn't paying attention, but I get home, I put on the CD and I'm like, what? This sounds nothing like Warrant. And there's no internet to do the research on back then, or if certainly I didn't have the internet. But I remember bringing it back to the record store and be like, this isn't Warrant. It was in the Warrant section, and they actually returned it for me, and they actually gave me the proper Dog Eat Dogs or Warrant CD titled Dog Eat Dog. So it's funny that you say that people got the wrong CD at that time. There it was, me being one of those people as a big friggin' fan at that time. And hey, whatever, I was duped. Like I said, I didn't even really pay attention. I just friggin' grabbed it and ran. So Vin, you remember seeing Warrant opening up obviously for Paul Stanley in '89. You're saying you bought the album right away. In the late '80s, early '90s, do you remember being like, you didn't come with me in April of '89 to that show, and I don't think you came to me to the headline show in August. Do you remember being like a big fan of Warrant at that time?
I feel like I did see them after the Paul Stanley show. I kind of remember that.
Maybe you came to the headline show with me. It was at the Ritz.
And they played by themselves, or was there an opening act?
No, there was an opening act. Who it was off the top of my head, I don't remember.
I just feel like I did see them twice.
Okay, no,
because I liked them enough to do that.
Right.
But I can't be certain about that.
Okay. And were you buying the album? Like you had Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich. Did you buy Cherry Pie also when it came out?
No, my brother
No.
had it. If I remember correctly. Yeah, and I maybe just taped his, or at the time, I think there was a kind of a point in time. I think it was around 90, because this came out in '89, '90, where I started buying cassettes.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of what the reason why I would do that, because I was still really into the vinyl, but I know I started buying everything on cassette for some reason. So, which leads me to believe that I was probably just taped his, but I don't even remember doing that, quite honest, because I still have like all my tapes, and I don't remember having a Warrant Cherry Pie, recording.
Interesting.
I think I kind of felt at the time I didn't like that song, and that was like the lead single, so I was kind of like turned off right away.
Yeah.
For whatever reason. It's not so much my taste was changing, because I think in '90s Cinderella came out with Heartbreak Station, and there were some other records that I was still buying of that, of this genre.
Mm-hmm.
But for some reason I didn't attach myself to that record.
Right.
And only sort of recently, like songs like I Saw Red, that I realized those were really good songs that I kind of missed out on back then, And obviously this whole album, I never heard not a song off of it. I was not familiar with not even one song off this record. So this
Right.
was totally fresh for me.
Which is amazing to me because again, I bought the album like a year later, but I mean, I saw Warrant in concert in the 90s. I saw them perform some of
Well,
these songs in concert. So I never wavered as a fan. Yeah.
As I've mentioned before, it was around this time, 91, 92 is where it was actually because my brother had told me about the Chili Peppers, and I know I've mentioned this before. And when I started listening to Blood Sugar, there was all those other bands. I don't remember some of them, Jellyfish, and this other band. What was that other band that was similar? Like all these like funk, and then Rage Against the Machine. He told me about.
Faith No
What year was
More.
that? Faith No More. I started kind of getting into that more funkier, more riff-driven stuff, And I think I kind of was starting to get away because I didn't have whatever the Poison album that came out at that time, the Motley Crue album that came out around. Yeah, I didn't get any of those records, none of them.
So that's interesting because I wanted to bring this
and
up.
I think I also had the burnout factor. I think I started feeling like, oh my God, it's like same Cinnamon Sandpipe. These songs are all sounding the same to me,
Right. Yeah.
Well,
So
I've told Vincent we've had this discussion quite a few times, but never in the context of a podcast show. So I'll just say this. Admittedly, by 1992, bands like Warrant were really falling off my radar even more. It was like, it was pretty drastic. I mean, 90, 91, I was definitely still like pretty head first into the whole entire thing. But you couple things like trends and peer pressure from your friends and things like that. And it's like, people start looking at some of the music you're listening to and you start feeling self-conscious.
And you're a couple of years younger than us, so that peer pressure is even worse as
more than a couple.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I'm just starting high school, and there's new people I'm meeting there, and so then there's a little bit of that pressure there too. So unfortunately, I think I've said to Vincent too that I allowed myself to, to stray away from a lot of this music that I truly loved, and I start to feel ashamed about it, which. You're young.
Didn't a Winger record didn't a Winger record come to an end based on that?
Yeah, a few records came to a destructive demise. I'll just say that.
And now he regrets.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, the nice thing is growing up and you start making some decent money, and you could rebuy these things again that you once destroyed like an idiot. So I came back and repurchased a lot of the records that I regretfully got rid of.
Right.
So when it came into the whole thing where podcasting became more of a prevalent thing, and shows were just dropping left and right. One of the shows covered Dog Eat Dog, and I want to say this was probably in like the 2010s, so like early around that point where I was listening to a few shows, and that's where I said, okay, I'm gonna have a listen to this album that I completely missed out on in 1992. And I even remember like some friends buying the CD, and I remember even asking them like, is that any good?
Right.
and they'd be like, yeah, it's actually really good. You should check it out. I'm like, yeah, maybe, it's like I had like the interest to know if it was good, but I just wasn't going to admit to anybody that I really probably wanted to listen to it at the time.
I was the last of a dying breed in the 90s. I bought albums from Dokken and Motley Crue and Warrant. It's all through the 90s.
The thing that makes me kind of upset at myself for that is, in 1992, I was all in on Kiss Revenge. I was just still all in on Kiss in general. I never gave up my Kiss fandom, but just some of the other younger bands and things like that that became completely uncool. And then, of course, going into 93, 94, then you start having Beavis and Butthead, and everybody knows what happened with Beavis and Butthead and what that did to bands like Warrant, Winger. I mean, it's well documented. All you got to do is watch the Paramount documentary that just recently came out. So, when podcasts and all that stuff and all that came around, and I was really listening to a lot of different shows, that's when I finally decided. And, then I eventually picked up my own CD.
Made the purchase.
Made the purchase. And now I have, the first 3 Warrant CDs. And thankfully, thanks to the great Music on Vinyl, they reissued the first 3 Warrant albums on Columbia Records and on colored vinyl. So I got them once again. Well, and the first time on vinyl
Right.
for this
Right.
one,
Right.
which I definitely recommend for all those vinyl fans out there.
So let me ask you guys this, right? So Pete, you're bringing up like the whole music scene in the early 90s and the Beavis and Butthead. I
Mhm.
know a lot of people feel like whether it's the Warrants or the Wingers and all of those bands that kind of came out in the late 80s, early 90s kind of killed off the 80s music scene. Do you think that, like Vin, you were saying before also, it just became like an overload of all these same bands one after the other? Do you think that the Warrants of the world killed off the 80s rock scene on us?
No, I think the music industry did. I just think they were churning out the lower level bands. I mean, I'm not going to pick on any in the individual bands, but towards the end of that, you started seeing bands that were still kind of successful, even like a band like Trickster. And I'm not saying they weren't a good band, that's not, but you had Trickster, Firehouse,
Mm-hmm.
you had bands of that sort, and it was just kind of the same thing. It really wasn't getting any originality, the ballads all started sounding the same. And I just remember at the time being like, oh, this is coming to an end. I really felt like I got tired of it and burnt out. And that's why when I got turned on to the other stuff I mentioned, I was like, oh, this is exciting. This is new. Doesn't sound anything like this stuff. I just felt like, and that's why I think I always talk about the Cinderella, why I brought Heartbreak Station is because I always said like Cinderella wasn't really a heavy metal band per se. They became more and more blues. They would bring more of that, whether you call it like Stones influence, whatever you want to do with the female background singers and the B3 Hammond B3, your favorite organ, and different things of that sort. And so that's why I think I stuck around with them, and why I still kind of bought their record in whenever that came out, late '90s. I don't remember, but
Right.
That was 90.
so
Now, what
Heartbreak's
about
90,
from
right?
your perspective, Pete, right? Being younger than us, did you in the late 80s, early 90s, did you feel like the Warrants or whatever was killing off the music scene? Or were you just like, hey, I'm young enough, I'm just getting into these bands and I'm digging it?
Honestly, it goes back to what I was saying before. It was never a moment. And the whole narrative, I can go on for days about how much I can't stand the boring narrative that continues to perpetuate for so long about as soon as Nirvana released Nevermind, all these bands died. It's like
Yeah.
it's so much more than that.
Agreed.
I didn't, and I got into Nirvana before the mainstream public did, thanks to WSOU college radio 89.5. I mean, before MTV ever even played the video, I followed that radio station, and I would listen every Monday for the new releases and stuff like that. And it was just like I heard "Smells Like Teen Spirit" and I was like, this song is incredible. I want to buy this record. I never said to myself, I will never touch a Warrant or Poison record again because I just
Right.
heard this track. It's like that didn't happen.
Not to me either. Agreed.
It's more, again, to me, for me it was more of the peer pressures and just the trends and seeing, what was cool and what really wasn't cool
Yep.
anymore, and being an impressionable young kid,
Yep.
just out of eighth grade, starting high school
Yep.
at that point, and you make silly decisions when you're young. So
Absolutely.
it had nothing to do, and I get like what my brother's saying. Yeah, I think the music industry absolutely saturated the market with these bands. I mean, towards the end, it was like you look in an issue of Metal Edge, and it was like, all these bands that they were peddling that you're like, I'm never gonna buy this record. Kick
Yep.
Tracy and
Um,
fucking I don't know, sort of Rocks Gang and like
Yeah.
like all these bands. There's so many I could probably think. Pretty Boy Floyd, Tough.
Right.
It was just like, yeah. I mean, I like this band already, and I don't really need this one.
Right.
So I get that part, but for me, it was more like, trying to evolve and I guess going more with what was a little more hipper and trendier at the time, which again, not the greatest overall decision, but that's where I was at the time, and this is like a year before this album, White Lion released Main Attraction, another album that went completely underappreciated. That was,
Yep.
to me,
well,
like an equivalent to Warrant's Dog Eat Dog. It was the band getting to do the record that they really wanted to do and
Yep.
really hammering it, out of the ballpark. And I was all
yeah,
in on that record. And that was 91,
Yep.
you know?
yeah.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
that's my take on it.
I think I'll say this one last thing before we begin the shindig because I'm
Mhm.
salivating right now. Um, yeah, the music didn't kill the hair metal scene, meaning the bands. nor did Nirvana. It was the music industry that did. The music industry made a decision that because there were still good bands like the Motley Crues and, like you said, White Lines and this album and Skid Row, and they were putting out good records, but the record companies decided not to promote the records anymore. And we know there's a long history where the money pays the disc jockey to play this and to do that, and they have the money to do that. Whether it was oversaturated and the fact that they just signed too many bands. That's why another reason why I'm blaming the music industry. They got greedy like anything else. They felt like they still didn't have enough. They wanted more product. There was so much product. It was glorious at that time between 87, 88, 89, when heavy metal just really ruled the world. I couldn't even believe it at the time.
Yep.
I couldn't believe, I've said it before, and I'll make this the last thing I say. One of my favorite bands, Great White, had a hit, which I know it was a cover, but still, I never thought in a million years like people would pay attention to this band. Yep. And then when they had a top 10 or even top 5, I don't know if that Once Bit Twice Shy went top 5. I just couldn't believe every time I'd hear it on the radio, and I was like so happy about like the music I love was being played as pop mainstream, even though it wasn't pop mainstream, but on a Billboard top 100.
Yep.
So
no, yeah, to your point, Vin. I know I've heard Jani Lane say about this album, Dog Eat Dog, that he knew that the band was probably in trouble when he went up to the Columbia, which was their record label. He went up to their offices, and in the past, it was the Cherry Pie album was up on the wall, and he knew that they were getting all the attention. And then all of a sudden, Dog Eat Dog's about to come out, and what's up on the wall? Alice in Chains. And he said, I remember hearing an interview with him. He's like, uh-oh. That's not quite like us. We might be in trouble. Now, it's interesting to me because Alice in Chains, I think, was opening for Van Halen, and I saw them in 91. And I recorded a Kicks concert in early 92. And as I'm leaving, I still had the tape recorder going, and you hear Nirvana being played in the background. So it was definitely that overlap. Like you were saying, like there wasn't a difference between, in my mind, in early 92, Kicks and Nirvana. It was rock, and it was either good or it wasn't. And it was only like in the year after that with the flannels and all of that, where like the whole grunge thing just became like a whole selling point. And it was like, it was supposed to be, the opposite of what we grew up listening to. But I'm one of those people, like I said before, that kind of just, I listened to both sides of it. I bought a Stone Temple Pilots album. I bought a Dokken album at the same time. It didn't matter to me. It's either good or it's not good. And, I'm kind of curious, Vin, especially in your case. So we have 3 different things here. So I got this Warrant album, Dog Eat Dog, in 93. So I've known this album for whatever it is, 30 plus years. Pete, it sounds like you first got the album in 2010. Am I right in saying that?
A little bit after that. Yeah, okay. Probably around like 10 years ago.
Okay. So, I mean, you got it a good 20 years or so after it came out, roughly, give or take. Yeah. And Vin just heard it in the last couple of weeks for the first time. So we have 3 very different points of view coming in on this album. And I'm really curious to see what we think. Now, I'll admit, I still listen to Warrant to this day. I don't think that they're one of the bands that oversaturated the market. I feel like it's too bad they didn't come out in 85 or 86. I think they could have been bigger than they were. I happen to think Jani Lane is a great voice, great songwriter. If you don't know a lot about Jani Lane as a vocalist, go back and watch when he was in Great White for a little bit and hear him singing some of those songs. Go watch him do covers of like Purple Rain that you could find on YouTube, and him singing that. There's a lot of really good stuff. I think for me, my opinion, Jani Lane is the most underrated lead singer from the 80s time period. I just think he's that good of a voice.
Yeah, I mean, I revisited all 3 of the first 3 Warrant records before we recorded today, just because I wanted to get the evolution from album 1 to album 3 all in one shot again. And yeah, I mean, to everything you said, he was a really great vocalist that I think that definitely goes a little bit underappreciated.
Yeah.
And
because
I've
they
heard,
know only people know him as the Cherry Pie guy.
Yeah, exactly. And
I was in the Jani Lane side that I freaking hate that song. It's one of the worst songs in a decade.
That footage of him talking about Cherry Pie, about how he could just kill himself for writing that song, it's really uncomfortable.
It is
to see, knowing what happened with him, but
it is.
It's just tragic because, he was a great songwriter. It's proven.
Yes.
The songs on those first 3 albums, including this one that we're doing today, that absolutely proved that he was much more than the fucking cherry pie guy, which
yeah.
just is tragic. It's it's sad.
Language.
And Pete, no, it's fine. It's fine. I'm going to add, from a personal point of view, the album that followed this up, the two albums that followed this up, I think Ultraphonic and Belly to Belly, to me,
Phobic.
Ultraphobic. Yeah, it's been years since I looked at the title. So Ultraphobic and Belly to Belly are both excellent albums as well to me. There's some really good Warrant songs on there as well. The band started to change. Some of the members that were on the first three albums are no longer on those other albums, but Janie was still there. The voice was still there. And like I said, I continue to go see them in concert and get those CDs. But Dog Eat Dog. What we're going to do here, Pete, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so one thing I think we should also point out is, there's always been the rumors, and not so much rumors, that Joey Allen and Eric Turner didn't play very much on the first two records. Dog Eat Dog, we really do know that they played on this record, the entire record. There's
a comment in the liner notes, if I remember right?
Yeah, there is. There is. So I'm sorry, I just got to. I forget the person who played. Oh, Mike Slammer was the lead guitar player, who's mostly known for covering the solos, and of course CeCe DeVille on Cherry Pie, the song itself. But on this album, it's purely Warrant, and it's purely the guys in the band. So I think that also makes this record just a little bit more special than the first two, because it's truly the band.
Agreed. So let's jump in. Let's talk about the Dog Eat Dog album. I don't know where this is going to go. I'm really curious to hear. I figure, Pete, the fact that you picked the album, there's going to be at least some if not love, for some of the songs. Then I really have no idea what you're going to say here. So I'm really curious. So let's start off with Machine Gun. And Pete, since you picked the album, I'm going to let you go first. What do you think of Machine Gun? And wait, before you even do that, as we always do, we're going to rate the songs 0 to 10, 10 being absolutely picture perfect, a quote unquote stairway to heaven. Not every song in the world clearly is not a 10. Anything 7 or better is an upper echelon type song. 5 is average, below 5, less than average, just in case you're watching for the first time and you don't know our rating scale. So go ahead, Pete. Machine Gun.
Okay, so I gave Machine Gun a 7, and I just basically say it's a very strong opening track, and it definitely signals a change to any listener who's followed the band for the first two albums, that this is going to be a little bit different than what you heard on Cherry Pie and Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinkin' Rich. So I give it a strong 7.
Nice. Vin, what did you think of Machine Gun?
The Commodores or this one? I'm sorry, I just had to.
We'll go with the Warrant one for this episode.
Okay. Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah. Oh, that was Jimi Hendrix. Yeah. Yeah. I thought it was a good album opener. I didn't rate it quite as high as Pete. I gave it a 5.7.
Okay. Yeah, this is one of the songs I saw them do in concert in the 90s. It's, if I remember right, it's one of the singles, but maybe not. Maybe Hole in My Wall was the single. I don't know. But yeah, anyway, it was one of the songs that they would definitely plug in the 90s.
This was the first single.
All right, it was. Yeah. It was the first single. Yeah, I think it's a cool, heavy song. I don't think it's a great song, but I think it's definitely a good song. I went with a 5.9, right, a little higher than you, Vin, but not quite as high as Pete. And Vin, you're keeping track
I think
of
all my
these?
Scores are a little too generous, but
no. They're your scores, Pete. You're going to stand by them, and you're going to see I have an interesting journey on this album, so you'll see that. But you got the scores going for us, right, Vin?
I got the scores with the right math. Yes.
Divide by 12, right?
You make one mistake, you got to make a federal case about it.
If it was one mistake, I wouldn't make a federal case out of it.
One good decision.
Oh, man. All righty. Hole in My Wall. Go ahead, Vin. I'm going to let you go first on this one. Hole in My Wall.
Alice in Chains?
Yes.
A little obvious.
Yeah. I mean, this was great. I love this. I love the guitar solo. I think it's my favorite solo on the record. It's a great guitar solo. I love the talk box, and even though it's kind of reminded me of like Alice in Chains, and I just love the drums with the and with the bass drum is going with it. It's kind of really. And we should mention that Michael Wagner produced this record, and any of his records always sound great. But yeah, I gave this a 6.5 to this song. I really like
Nice.
this track a lot.
Nice. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, again, I went with a 7, and my notes were basically that the same thing. The Alice in Chains thing. It's kind of obvious that the
Yes.
influence is there, which it's funny because it's before that infamous time that Janie was talking about, where he walked into the offices and saw the Alice in Chains poster on the wall instead of Cherry Pie. But I said, I like the nice unexpected transition to the talk box guitar solo in the middle of the track.
Mhm.
And obviously, yeah, I mentioned the same thing as Vincent with the sounds like a little bit of a hint of influence leaking into the songwriting via label mates Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
So yeah, I went with, again, solid 7
Nice.
because it is. And yeah, again, I got to piggyback on my brother for noting the production. If anything, I think this is the most strongly produced album of the first three, like overall. Like production is incredible on this record.
I agree.
No slight on Bo Hill, but
No.
Michael Wagner definitely did a little bit of a better and punchier job with the band on this record.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, this is another one that I saw them do live in the 90s that I always enjoyed. Again, it's another one for me that I don't think it's an absolutely
Julie.
great song, but it's
good.
definitely it's a good song. And yeah, I went with a 5.9 on this one.
Same Cinnamon Sandpipe.
Yeah,
Both of you.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Pete and I are both consistent at the start of this album, so at least in our ratings of the songs. April 2031, the one Vincent alluded to before. I guess I'll start off here on this one. So to me, I always thought this was an interesting song, right? Because when the album came out in 92, April 2031 seemed like it was a lifetime away. And as I'm listening to this album again to kind of remind myself of the songs, I'm like, God damn, this song's only 6 years away right now from no longer being the future, but being in the past almost, So it's, to me, lyrically, it kind of shows the maturity of Janie. As think about him going from writing Cherry Pie to writing April 2031, right? I mean,
Yeah.
you couldn't get much different as a songwriter. But that's one of the things I love about Janie Lane as a songwriter is, to me, he does both convincingly and does them both well. And you could have a cheesy song like Cherry Pie, and you could have a serious lyric song like April 2031. Again, I think this is a good song, not a great song. I'll go with a 6 on this one. Finn, go ahead. You go next.
Yeah, I mean, what I found interesting in this, and I was like trying to think of where it was derivative of, like the whole accents on the kids singing, like that English accent or whatever. And like I was thinking Pink Floyd for some reason. I'm like, what made them decide to have that? I mean, I think it's a really cool sound. It was a good choice. It was a very interesting song and production. I wasn't expecting that at all. And the overall feeling, and I know we're only like 3 songs in, listening to the record, it just was kind of really kind of sad in a way, as what you said, that here's this guy who obviously suffered with his demons and died, at his own hand, so to speak, and was as you guys have said, a great songwriter. And as you listen to the record, it's kind of hard to listen to in a way, knowing that the way he dies, people die, but the fact that basically because of substance abuse, it led to his demise. It's really sad because there was so much talent there. Not that you weigh anyone better than the other or should die first. And I say I'm not trying to weigh things out. That'd be silly and stupid. But yeah, I think when I got to this song and I was really listening to the lyric and not hearing about whether Cherry Pie or I always I pick on Kiss with I'll meet you in the ladies' room. It's so obvious. But yeah. So that being said, I gave this a 5.8.
Okay, nice. Go ahead, Pete.
Well, yeah. Once again, I'm slightly above on the scoring points than the both of you.
Good, I love it.
So I gave April 2031 a 7.5, and it's mostly because of the maturity factor of the songwriting. I mean, we already knew, thanks to like songs like Uncle Tom's Cabin and from Cherry Pie, we already knew the Janie Lane's capabilities as a songwriter.
Great point.
But I am the type of person, like if you ask me about favorite Kiss albums, like The Elder and Carnival of Souls are high up on the list, whereas some other people are like, what are you, fucking crazy? I like those albums by bands that were maligned or didn't do so well. Like another one that I almost brought to this show was Motorhead. Another Perfect Day from 1983. It's another one of those albums. So, that showed a little more of a maturity than just, the Ace of Spades. So that's the basis for my score. And I basically say at this point in the album, you really know this is not going to be like anything like the first two albums overall.
So
and then
true.
I had to note the little Whitesnake guitar lick. And if you hear me saying that, maybe you know which lick I'm talking about.
I'm
Or if
not
you
making the
don't.
connection. No. Okay.
That little hook that's in the song is
Right,
very
right.
White
Okay.
Snake-ish, very White
Okay.
Snake-ish to me. So I wanted to point that out. I like that little. I don't know if it was an homage to them or if it's just something that was kind of
Interesting.
common. But yeah, I just and they've done that. I even heard that on, I think it was on the Cherry Pie album. They did it on one of the songs too.
Right.
So or the first album. So it wasn't the
Interesting.
first time. So yeah,
Interesting.
7.5 from
Nice.
from your favorite high score.
No, hey, look, uh, I'll keep my mouth shut right now. Let's move to the next song. Andy Warhol was right. Go ahead, Pete. I'll let you go first this time.
Okay, well, Andy Warhol was right. I gave a solid 7. Again, it goes back to like something how I feel about an album like Carnival of Souls for Kiss, in contrast to the stuff that they're most known for producing. It's a pretty dark and heavy song. Obviously, a little dark when it comes to the lyrical content and things like that. But I said, this is again with April 2031 and then Andy Warhol was right that this is back-to-back tracks where you can easily come to the conclusion that these songs are not like anything on the first two albums. Once
Yep.
again, it's kind of like, same as what I said before, but
Yep.
it's really making the point by track 4 that you're in for a much different listening experience for this album than you had
Great.
for the prior two.
Yep. Yep. Agreed. So what'd you give it?
I gave it a 7.
Nice. Okay. Go ahead, Vin. What do you think about Andy Warhol?
Yeah, I think this is a great song. I love the toy piano. That's like a really
I
cool,
thought you were gonna like that.
yeah. Again, it surprised me when I listened to it. Um, what I like about some of the songs, I really like his pre-choruses. Sometimes I like his pre-choruses better than the choruses. He's got really cool
Yeah.
pre-choruses. But yeah, I gave this a 7.5. I think this is a really,
Wow.
really strong song. Yeah, I like this one
Nice.
a lot.
Wow, higher than
Nice.
me.
I like
Oh,
that. I like
yeah,
that.
There
So
we go.
clearly I'm in the minority here because my notes say Andy Warhol was right and Janie Lane was wrong. So
I hear
friendly.
I just don't, this song never grabbed me. I don't know why. I agree with what Pete said. When this album starts, especially the first 3, 4, 5 songs, hey, this is a different listening experience. But this one just, I hate to use this term, but it's always a boring
Yeah,
song to me.
boring.
Yeah,
That's
it
boring.
never grabbed me. So I'm sorry. I'm going to probably insult the both of you guys right now. I'm going to go with a 4.7.
Wow,
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah. It's I just never liked this
I,
song at
I might,
all.
I might be getting in my car and slap you in the back of the head.
There you go. You see that?
4.7.
Yeah. I never liked this. If I don't listen to that song again, I'm okay with that.
Don't close your eyes.
Yeah. Bonfire. Go ahead, Vin. Bonfire.
Yeah. Anything that has fire on, I like,
That's true.
Yeah, no, this song I thought was a little bit above average, quite honestly. This is the one song that felt dated to me with those gang vocals. I was just like, that didn't do it for me. I didn't like it. I think it's in the verses. But that being said, I thought it was, it's got a cool chorus, kind of, and but I just gave it a little bit above average. I gave it a 5.2.
Okay. What about you, Pete? What do you think about Bonfire?
Yeah, I mean, my notes were pretty short and simple. That this song is pretty much one of the closest times that they come to sounding like anything on the first two albums for the most part. Yeah, I think the chorus is catchy, but yeah, it suffers a little bit in overall quality compared to some of the songs we just mentioned. Even though you weren't a huge fan of Andy Warhol, was right, but I gave Bonfire a 6.5.
Okay.
And yeah, I like the production and the chorus, but yeah, I think it's like Vincent said, it is above average.
Yeah. It's It's funny, had we done this podcast episode 10 years ago, I probably would have said Bonfire was my least favorite song on the album. It just, to your point, Vin, it just sounds dated to me. I always hated the damn lyric, probably take on the whole football team. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's something about
yeah.
that lyric just always irritated. It's like you go from these really well-written songs like Machine Gun, Hole in My Wall, April 2031 to probably take on the whole football team. I was like, yeah.
It's almost like they had to put like one of those token
yeah,
kind of silly lyrical songs on the record.
yes,
They had
yes.
to like justify at least one of them.
And I just felt like it never belonged. Saying all of that, as I re-listened to the album a couple of times to do this, I don't know why, but this is the song I kept going back to singing in my mind. So there's something about it that was still kind of a little bit catchy. But if I'm being objective, it's not a great song at all. Probably had we done this 10 years ago, I would have gone with like a 3. That's how much I used to dislike this song. But but now I'm gonna go with just a smidge under average. I'm gonna go with 4.9.
Okay.
I thought we were getting set up for a high rating after you started the way you started.
No. It's I'm only saying that it kind of grew on me a little bit in the last couple of years, but it's still, to me, I have to be objective. It's a below average song. I think whichever one of you guys said they kind of felt like they probably had to put a song like this on the album. I don't think they had to. I think it would have been better off if they left one song or maybe even 2 off this album, with this being one of them. So that's me. All righty. The Bitter Pill. Vin, I'm curious to hear what you have to say about this one. The Bitter Pill. Go ahead.
I like this song. I thought this song was great. You know, that middle chance that they
You
had
like
in
the
there.
keyboards.
Yeah. It's this.
You're not going to start singing in German for us right now?
If I could, I would.
Say you like the keyboards because he probably had the same keyboard back in '92.
Yeah. No, it just
sounds like something from your basement.
Yeah, I mean, I really liked again, this one took me by surprise, and I gave it a 6.5. I like this one a lot.
Nice. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, Bitter Pill is one of my favorite choruses on the entire album. Really great guitar solo section with the bass and drums leading it all in. Yep. And I gave the Bitter Pill a 7.5. And I definitely think it's one of the best songs on the album. And yeah, definitely a surprising moment when you first listen to the album, not knowing what you're getting yourself into. And yeah, it seems to be a very popular song amongst podcasters who've talked about this album. So
I'm not surprised. I mean, it's a well-written song, a bit unique, a bit different. I was trying to think of this, and maybe one of you guys can help me. The production on this, the verses kind of goes back and forth in the ears, right? Like each line kind of goes back and forth. I don't remember any other song being produced like that, where I'm kind of like going panning left ear, right ear during a song. I think, Vin, you mentioned the production before. I just think that's really cool. I love the bass in the song, like you guys said. I love that whole breakdown with the German lyrics in this. It's a really good song. This is where the album now starts to, I'll say for me, spoiler alert, kicks into overdrive a little bit here. So
I agree.
I'll say this. I'll go with a 7 on this one. It's right at that starting point of the upper echelon songs. I really dig this song a lot. So, all righty. Hollywood. So far, so good. Go ahead, Pete.
Again, this is absolutely one of my top favorite songs on the album. Like when I first bought the record and was listening to it, I found myself listening to this song quite often. Like I would go to like Spotify or whatever and just cue it up if I felt like listening to something, because it's just and this is what I say. I said it's the brightest track overall on the album, on the entire album. Very catchy, radio friendly, and any Jane's Addiction fan that's watching or listening and has heard this album and this song would have to come to the conclusion that there's a little bit of an influence from the song Jane Says that I feel might have been there before they wrote
the song. It reminded me of. I was trying to rack my brain. Down. I'm like, what does this remind me of?
Yep.
I don't think I know that song, so now I got to go back and listen to it.
Yeah, and I don't say that to disparage them either. I mean, come on, how many bands do we know that kind of unintentionally lift something from a band? As long as the song is good, I'm usually okay with things like that. So I gave Hollywood So Far So Good a 7.5 as well. I probably could have went a little higher, but I thought that was a good way to go. 7.5 is definitely upper echelon.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think it's a better song overall than The Bitter Pill. So that was also where I kind of tamed it down a little bit without consulting tame me down from Festa Pussycat. You had to beat me to it.
Of course, Finn always had. Yeah, so Pete, it's funny that you said some of the things you did, because this was also for me when I got the CD, 15 years prior to you. This was a song that I constantly went back to as well. Right. So it was just one of these songs that kind of just grabbed me. I love like the acoustic guitar through it. It's like a mid-tempo.
Yeah, that's
song.
what I like a lot too, is the acoustic guitar dynamic mixed in.
Yeah,
It's just a very well recorded and written and produced song.
Agreed. And now it's funny because I'll agree with you also, probably as a written song, The Bitter Pill is a better written song, right? But there's something about Hollywood that I just always really liked. I really enjoyed. I think you and I ended up going with the same rating on this. I went with a 7.5 on this one as well.
Yeah, I'm really surprised. I mean, again, if the song would have been released as a single, it probably would have been ignored anyway.
Sure.
But to your point earlier, if Warrant had came out and had their major record deal by like 85, 86,
yep,
and this song was released in like 88, 89, probably would have stood a big chance of being a hit.
I agree.
And before Jane's Addiction could come around and write Jane Says.
Oh, that's funny. What about you, Vin? What do you think? Hollywood So Far So Good.
It's funny you guys say that about the song, because this would be the last song I would release on the album as a single.
Really?
I thought the song was average song, and I wrote doesn't do much for me, but that means I gave it a 5. I really didn't. I think it was a bad song. I just thought it was average, and I just think the previous however many songs there were, 2, 4, 6 songs, just were much better than this in some ways. I said Bonfire, I gave it a 5.2, so it's not like I gave it that much on that one.
Right.
Yeah, it just didn't resonate with me. This one.
Interesting.
Maybe in time. Again, I've only listened to this album, Confession, for less than a week.
Right.
Although I already got my Tidal, which is my Spotify, that's already got the most streams I've listened to of any other in the last month. So
that's great.
I did my homework. I try to listen to a record 8 times, 8 times. I don't give it one listen unless we're doing a review of like Asylum or whatever, which I've heard that record 1,000 times.
Right. Look, I think it's obvious you gave it listens because you're humming along some of the guitar parts, you're singing some of the lyrics, so you know the album at this point. So
yeah. And as soon as he said Jane Says, I knew exactly this was the song. That's what it reminded me of. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, look, every once in a while, Vin, you got to be wrong, and this is one you're wrong about. So that's okay.
I'm still not wrong about the Kicks song.
No, you're not. You are rather, but that's okay.
He said, "No, you're not." Witness. Yeah, there you go. Do not edit this out. Do not Kulik this. Do not Kulik that part.
Yeah, that's funny. All right. All My Bridges Are Burning. Maybe I'll go first on this one. This is another one to me, Pete, that when I first got the album, I was constantly drawn to. To me, it was like a great 1-2 punch on the album, Hollywood, and then All My Bridges Are Burning. To this day, it's 2 great songs to me. To me, it's another fun song. This is the song to me. We were talking about Bonfire lyrically being maybe like some of the earlier Warrant albums. This one, to me, could have been on Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinking Rich, maybe with a little bit different production, and I could see it fitting.
Sure.
It sounds more like the first couple of Warrant albums to me. It's a song I still really like to this day. I went with a 7.8 on this one.
Wow.
So, yeah. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, so you went with a higher score than me. I think this is the second time on the episode. So
nice.
Now, I really like All My Bridges Are Burning as well. Again, I give it another 3 in a row, 7.5.
Nice. Great
rockin' track with a great chorus. And back to what we were saying earlier, very strong vocal performance by Janie Lane. Yes. It's one of his best.
I'm glad you brought that up because you're absolutely right. I agree. It's a great vocal performance. Yeah, agreed. Vin, what about you? Is this another one that you're like not connecting with like Pete and I did?
No, I called this was the album's After the Rain by Nelson. That's what it reminded me of.
Interesting.
That's what it reminded. I mean, I had that record. I confess on cassette, by the way.
Yes, he did.
But yeah, as soon as the song starts, it's got a different tempo, it's got a different feel, and I immediately connected to it. I like that sound. I still to this day. And then I said, what does this remind me of? Like, and I thought of that song After the Rain.
Yeah.
Kind of feel and And so, of course, I liked it immediately. So I gave it a
Mhm.
6.5.
Okay, nice, very nice. That's interesting. I've never made that connection, but now I'm like, yeah, I could hear that. I could hear that connection
Mm.
in a little bit with After the Rain.
Once again, it shows you that I really listened to the record.
Like I said before, I never doubted for a moment. But
Mm-hmm.
all right, Quicksand. Go ahead, Vin. Quicksand. What do you think?
That's funny. This is what I was saying before. I like the quicksand. I like the pre-chorus the most in this song. Um, I still got a good chorus, so don't get me wrong. But yeah, I think don't like this as much as all my bridges. I gave this a 5.9.
No, okay. What about you, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, Quicksand, same thing as my brother said. It's the only note I really have on the song. Great pre-chorus on this track. It
Mhm.
is. It's an absolutely outstanding pre-chorus. But inevitably,
You don't expect it. You don't expect the
yeah,
melody to go that way. That's for me. That's what it
yeah.
was.
Right.
But yeah, it's a kind of an above average song for me. I gave it a 6.5.
Wow. All right. So again, I guess I'm the minority on this one. So I said before, there's like one or two songs I could do without on the album. This is the second one. So this one I just never connected with either. Again, here comes that word, boring. It just ah, never liked this one. It's my least favorite actually on the album. I'm gonna go with a 4.3 on this one. Not a fan. All righty. Let It Rain. Go ahead, Pete. Let It Rain. Get your umbrella out. What do you think?
This would be my least favorite song on the entire
Hmm.
album. I gave this one a 6. I said not in the upper echelon of Warrant ballads, but solid enough. But if I'm
Mhm.
weighing this one against the ballads on Dirty Rotten Filthy Stinking Rich and Cherry Pie, there's no contest. The ones on the prior albums completely
Right.
obliterate this one. So I've never been a huge fan of this song. So I didn't want to go any lower than a 5. I think there's some redeemable qualities about it. So I figured 6 is a good enough rating.
Okay. What about you, Vin?
Yeah, this is another song where, this is very reminiscent of that era of the 80s ballads and stuff like that. That being said, it's still a well-written song. Of course, I'm thinking of, I wish it would rain down by, rain on me, the Roger Daltrey Who, love rain over me. I'm like, all right, enough with the rain. But it's a good song. I gave it a 6 too.
Okay. Yeah, this
You
is
already had After the Rain, and now it's Let It
After the
Rain.
rain, yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's
Jesus
right.
Christ, all the rain.
Sorry, that's funny. Yeah, Pete, I tend to agree with you in terms of, this ballad is not as strong as some of the other ballads on their first two albums, but it's not because I don't love this song. I actually do love this song. I just think some of those other, like something like Heaven, um, I Saw Red, I just think they're
I saw red.
just phenomenal songs.
Yeah.
I mean, I put those, I'd give them probably both very high ratings. I happen to think Let It Rain is a great song. I love this one. So I'm gonna go a little higher than both of you. I'm gonna go with an 8 on this one.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ballad Boy strikes again.
Ballad Boy strikes again. That's right. Exactly. All righty. Well,
I didn't even think
anything.
both of you ever approached the 8 or 9, so that's a
Yes.
surprise for me.
Yes, I do approach 8s and 9s, and this to me, yeah, I love this song. I absolutely love it.
All right.
But the opposite of Ballad Boy, Inside Out. So go ahead,
Yeah.
Pete.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Pete.
I mean, coming from my background and all, yeah, I'm all in on this song. So a double bass drumming fest and a group punk rock oi 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 on a Warren album. I mean, come on. Who the hell was expecting that? And if I would have heard it in like 1994, 95, 96, when I was in the thick of my thing,
Mhm.
playing in punk and hardcore bands, I probably would have really liked this and would have been like, yeah, I should give this record a chance
Yep.
if I would have done that back then. So I give Inside Out a 7.5. I like it as a song, a second to last song on the album. It's just a real great punchy track to lead us to the end of the album.
Yep. It's funny, because this song actually Warrant opens up many of their shows on the Cherry Pie tour with this song. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh no,
So
I didn't know that.
so yeah, so that they were, you could check out some of the bootlegs. I think there's even one of the professional videos that would like the pay-per-view or whatever. This is the first song they do. And at the time when they were opening this, like, what the hell is this? This is heavy. This is not like what they were known for necessarily at the time. And we're talking about 91 at that point, right? So before the whole grunge thing started and all of that. So to me, I always loved this song also. And to me, I remember knowing this song first before anything else on the album. I was like, well, this next Warrant album sounds like they're going to go a little bit of the heavier route. I still think it's a really good song. I went with a 7.2 on this one.
Janie drops the F-bomb at the end of the song.
That's right. Got this mic out of my mouth. It's just great. Love it. Absolutely love it. What about you, Vin? See, I feel like you're simmering something up over there.
I gave it a 3, 4.
No, I think I would have liked to hear the song earlier on the record. To be honest, I think they waited too long to put this on the record. It took me by surprise. The vocal is phenomenal on this. He was obviously very angry when he recorded. They got a great performance. Hence, my brother says at the end, if that's true, like he finished, the vocal.
Yeah,
I thought it was a great. It was surprised me. I'd never heard him sing like that with that kind of aggression and whatever, and it just showed me again his range. I give this an 8.1.
Nice. Wow.
Surprise.
Pete, I think he might have been on a little bit to some of the songs.
I was going to approach 8 on some of these, but I was like, maybe I'm being a little too overgenerous.
No,
yeah, okay.
So, all righty. Then that brings us to the final song.
What did you give it, Mike? What'd you give it?
7.2.
Okay.
That brings us to the final song on the album. Sad Teresa. Sad Teresa. Go ahead, Pete. What do you think of Sad Teresa?
Yeah, I think it's pretty solid song. I would say like a 6.5. Great album closer with a strong chorus.
Yep. Okay. Pete? Sorry, Vin. Too many LaRusses at once. Sorry. Too many LaRusses for me.
Mike. I think this is the best track on the record for me. I think it's closing the record with this is kind of strange for me. It feels like I think they should have, closed with, Bonfire or Hollywood or one of the other ones that, there wasn't, But yeah, I gave this 8.3. I think this is, I think it's just got a great chorus. It's totally up my alley. It's got the at the end of like the ode to heaven. Did he do that?
Heaven.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, heaven. Was that done on purpose?
Well, I'll address that in a moment, but go ahead.
Yeah. But 8.3 for me on this one.
Nice. So, I agree with one of the LaRusses here, and it is Vincent that I agree with. To me, this is the best song on the album. I agree with you, Vin. It's interesting you asked if this is like an ode back to heaven. This song actually dates back to 1987, from before they even had a record contract. There's a video out there of them playing somewhere in Los Angeles. I forget where, one of the clubs. And they actually do this song, and it's like one of the only 2 or 3 songs on our show that ever was released.
Was that Club Gamble?
Yeah, it was Club Gamble. Yes,
it was. Yes, it really was.
Now, mind you, if you go back and watch that performance, it's atrocious. The harmony singing on it is horrible. I was like, oh God, it's just bad. But this recorded version, I just think is absolutely phenomenal. I think it's a great way to end the album. I love that the ending part. Like, I won't sing it like the way you did, but to me, it's just a perfect ending. I actually went with a 9 on this one.
Nice.
All right, Vin. That closes out the 12 tracks.
What did my brother give?
What did you say?
6.5.
6. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I got the tallies.
All righty. I won't abuse you about your math. Go ahead.
In the top spot with a solid 7 for the overall average is my brother.
Nice.
And you have a 6.52.
Okay.
And I have a 6.417.
Wow. All right. So you and I actually are very close, and your brother's like a half a point higher than us, which is, it's not like one of us said it's a 3 and the other one said it's a 9. So I'm not surprised. For me, I've always listened to this album, viewed this album almost like in 2 halves, right? The first half is, I'll say a bit, I know Inside Out's on the second half, but the first half's like a bit heavier, a little bit dirty. It doesn't have like a typical Warrant sound to it. And then after Bitter Pill and you go into Hollywood, you get Hollywood, All My Bridges Are Burning, Let It Rain, Sad Teresa. those could all be like typical Warrant songs to me on the first. So to me, it's almost like two different albums in a way. I don't know if I was the only one that felt that way listening to this all these years, but yeah, for me, it's always been two different albums, like the heavier 90s version and the classic Warrant 80s sounds on the second half. I don't know. Am I crazy?
Well, no, I don't think
No.
so. And as we like to do, at least I'll do it on my part because I was the one who didn't hear this album. I'll put it in context to the other ratings I've given on other records. So like I said, this is 6.4. That's what it averages to. It's not a 6.5. Kiss Asylum, I gave a 6.11. So I rated this album higher than Kiss Asylum. Blizzard of Oz. All right, I'll tell you the ones I rated it higher than. Cinderella's first album.
You rate this higher than Cinderella.
Lick It Up, Cinderella's first album. The Alice Cooper From the Inside. Fearless Comet first album was basically a tie. Higher than Blow My Fuse. Higher than The Elder. Mask. Let's see.
Higher than the Sea
Higher than
Hags?
Unmasked. Yeah, higher than the Sea Hag. Higher than Unmasked slightly, and higher than Psycho Circus. So, well, considering we've done a lot of these things, and that's at least 6 records I think I named that I rate this for an album I've never heard before.
That's
actually, which leads me to say that that's an actual good pick, because if somebody could find something like with the Alice Cooper record, that I was never a fan of Alice Cooper at all, and actually Mario sent me a song to listen to. Super Mario sent me a song to listen to the other day. What was it called? Like I Can Cry? I Can't Cry?
It's a great song.
Was it I Can't Cry? Was it that was called? I Never Cry.
Yeah, I Never Cry.
Yeah, great song. That was off Alice
Cooper Goes to Hell.
Yeah.
Great.
Totally shocked me when I listened to that one too. I was like, this guy can really sing. All these years I thought, you're cruel.
That's very funny.
Tell.
Now that I'm actually on the show, I can tell the Poison story.
Go ahead.
Because I heard you talk about it on the Alice Cooper episode, and I was laughing. But this is how it literally went. Here we go.
He's like rubbing his hands. Here we go.
Okay, so MTV is about to have their world premiere of the video for Poison. Now, bear in mind, we only had cable for a few months at this point. We finally got cable in the neighborhood. We're all excited. We finally have MTV in the house. So they're set to premiere the world premiere of Alice Cooper Poison. I basically knew who Alice Cooper was. Mostly, a lot of it was because I was such a huge wrestling fan, and he had participated in WrestleMania 3 about 2 years before in 1987. So I had like my association from that. Plus, just knowing Alice Cooper, he was a famous rock star, whatever. So I wanted to see the video. I was very curious to see the video, and so my brother's like, the Alice Cooper. I was like, oh, leave it on. I want to see it. So this video starts, and you have the, and we're starting to get to right before the vocals are going to come in. I have to set it all up. You're cruel, boring, and he shuts it off. And I was like, no, put it back on. I want to see it. And bear in mind, I was like 13 years old.
And I can so see your brother doing that to you. Like literally one word into the song, boring.
You refused to put it back on. I caught the next premiere of the video probably a few hours later or whatever. Because it had like the whole world premiere treatment. It had the exclusive try on, like the whole entire thing. So I caught it later on, and then I actually did like the song, and I went to Record Hut and purchased the 45 for 50 cents, and I still have it.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
So there you go. Now you have it from firsthand someone who's actually there.
Right. Well, let me ask you.
I was cruel.
Well, we knew that already, Vin.
And then like Vincent said, he eventually bought the album. So
which is the funny part of that whole story, that he
was it really boring?
Exactly.
Vin was kind of comparing his overall ratings, Pete, to to some of our past ratings. Now, obviously, you haven't been on all these episodes with us, but I heard him mention that he rated this higher than the Elder, and you mentioned the Elder earlier. Warrant or Kiss the Elder? Warrant, the Dog Eat Dog album or the Elder? Which do you like better? Just off the top of your head.
Yeah, for that, I'm gonna go with Music from the Elder. I probably, because I have more of a personal history with it.
Sure.
And I've listened to it God knows how many times, at this point. My cousin was here recently. We put it on again to listen to. So it was only a few weeks ago it was on again. So yeah, and it's probably not a matter of which album is actually better, because you could make the argument that Dog Eat Dog is a much better album than Music from the Elder. But, I have more of a personal history with Music from the Elder. So, I would go to that first.
Yeah. And I forget what episode it was. Maybe Cinderella. Vin and I were talking about that, how sometimes certain songs, certain albums, certain bands, you just have a connection with, from whether it's your childhood, whatever it is. And even like I can listen to a song like Two Timer, let's just say, and I don't think that's a great song by any means, but goddamn, when they did it on the Kiss Cruise, I'm like, yeah, woohoo! Like, because I just have this connection with the song for 40 plus
Another great pre-chorus.
Yes.
Talking about pre-choruses.
Yeah. That's right. What were you going to say, Vin? I cut you off?
No, I was going to say that, that being said, I would listen to the Elder first over this record, just because of my Kiss fandom and,
fandom.
It's just a different thing. Fandom.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. But now for you, Vin, having never heard this album until now, this last week, does it give you a little bit of a different perception of Jani Lane as a songwriter and a singer? Or was it kind of like, oh, I wasn't surprised to see this from Jani?
No, it gives me more respect. I always thought he was a good songwriter. And then when I look at, Wikipedia, it's all songs written just by him. Every one of these 12 songs, it's undeniable. And the fact that the songs really do span different, they don't all sound same cinnamon sandpipe, they all have, they're all in the genre, so to speak, but, there's enough difference between them that keeps the album flow good, I think, even with the songs that I didn't rate anything under average, under a 5. So that's saying a lot for a record that I never listened to.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think I have 2 or 3 of the songs rated under a 5.
1, 2, 3. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And that has been my thing for years with this album. I love this album. I've told you before, Vin, I think some of Warrant's best stuff is what came after Cherry Pie. This song, just in my opinion, could have been 1 or 2 songs lighter. Remove 1 or 2. Now, of course, I'd have to choose the ones that I don't like.
They call that in the industry. A hot in the shade.
Yes, exactly. But of course, everybody might have different songs that they'd remove from the record, right? I think, Pete, you said Let It Rain was your least favorite song. I'm like, no friggin' way, you can't remove that from this album, right? So I guess in some ways it's nice that all 12 songs are there. But for me, if this album was 10 songs instead of 12, this would be a friggin' phenomenal album. There's a couple of songs that bring it down to me. Do you think that this album would have sold better had grunge not become a thing in 92? Or do you think Warrant just probably ran its course a little bit?
That's tough to say. That's tough. That's a tough one to say. You could try to put yourself in that context, but I don't know. I don't really know if you could predict, because you look at a band like White Lion with Main Attraction that I mentioned earlier, the album that their third album for Atlantic, similar here, that Warrant's third album for Columbia, White Lion releases probably their strongest, heaviest album, and it was released before Nevermind. Let's put it in that context too. And the album totally stiffed. It tanked. It didn't do nearly the numbers that Big Game had done before. It didn't even come close to Pride. Right. And you ask yourself, well, why? Why would that have happened? Could you blame Alice in Chains or Soundgarden because they were already around? No, I don't think you can. I just think it's either people's preferences or people just weren't like me, or that they didn't find the album as good as I did. And so I don't know. I think the same could have happened with Dog Eat Dog had there not been any influence of grunge around. It probably might have happened just from overall burnout, and MTV might have decided to abandon Warrant anyway for the next flavor of the day. Who the hell knows?
I
guess,
think
it's really tough to say.
the song Cherry Pie is such like a double-edged sword, right? Because on one hand, it was a big hit for them, right? And that's always a good thing. But on the other hand, I think it just turned off a number of people to them, just thinking that that's what the band was all about. And, if you think that that's what Warrant is all about and you haven't heard this album, go and listen to the song The Bitter Pill. Go and listen to April 2031 and hear how different those songs are compared to Cherry Pie. And then maybe reevaluate your opinion of Jani Lane as a songwriter, because to me, those songs are just far superior than Cherry Pie ever will be. And it's a shame in some ways that they got labeled as that type of band, because to me, there's so much more to Warrant than Cherry Pie or even Down Boys, right? Which I happen to like that song, but
Yeah.
there's so much more to the band in my opinion. So I'm glad you chose this album, Pete. When Vin texted me, he's like, "Hey, my brother chose Dog Eat Dog." I'm like, "Yes, all right." I never thought that's an album I'd ever talk about on my podcast, so that's cool. The only thing I said to your brother, I said, full disclosure, I know every song on the album. I could do this podcast in 10 minutes right now. I'm ready. So, but I was so super glad you actually chose this album, because I don't think this album gets anywhere near the recognition, and Warren, I don't think gets the recognition, and Jani doesn't get the recognition that they deserve. So if you watch the show and you don't know this album, check it out, because you see even Mr. LaRussa, Vincent, was persuaded. Pete and I kind of came in with at least a like of the album, if not even more than just a like. And Vincent, who could be a tough critic, remember his rating on Don't Close Your Eyes, right? Remember his rating on some of these other albums, and he rated every song on this album at average or even better, even handing out some 8s, which surprised me, Vin. So that's what I'm going to leave on. Any other notes, Vin, you want to mention before we wrap this up?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, because you said about could this, I don't know how you put it together, but I was just saying that this record could have been successful. Good music's good music, and if you have the machine pushing it the right way and getting it to listeners, I think this would have been a successful record. It just wasn't done that way. Period. End. I don't think it has, again, anything to do with grunge or anything like that. It just was not pushed.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree.
That's fact. That's fact too. I mean, Columbia didn't push the record. They basically saw the writing on the wall, what was going on, and they didn't give it a big push. I mean, I don't even think they even got very good tour support or anything for it. It's amazing they even got any promotional videos.
Yeah. No, it's that's a great point, Pete. To me and Vince, to your point, maybe if the label had pushed this, I'm not saying this album, Dog Eat Dog, would have sold like the ones I'm about to mention, right? But Def Leppard continued with like Two Steps Behind was a huge hit in 93. Aerosmith, what was it? Get a Grip was a huge hit album for them. It had a number of hit songs on there, ballads that were top 40 radio singles.
What about Bon Jovi? I mean, Bon Jovi was still putting out, top selling records.
Great point. So to me, there was certainly an opportunity. I'm not saying that Warrant would have sold as many millions of albums as those bands did, but I think a song like Let It Rain or Sad Teresa, Hollywood, or All My Bridges Are Burning, they had radio potential. It's just that the label was never going to push that type of stuff because they felt that was old news, I guess. I don't know. It's a shame. It's a good album to me. It's a good album. Mm-hmm. Well, Pete, I started off by saying it's been 2 years since you've been on. I'm going to make sure it's not another 2 years till you're on again. And, we'll see. I think you were saying beforehand, the first time you were on, you were bald. The second time you had the different hair. So this is like the third hair. So anybody going back to say, hey, I really enjoyed Pete, let me check it out. You're going to be surprised when you see different looking Pete's on every episode. Stay tuned. What's Pete going to look like the next time he's on the show? Who knows?
Am I going to chop it all off?
Oh, who knows?
Probably not.
Maybe we'll have to do a ranking on Pete's looks. Which ones do we like the best? Because Vin and I look the same in every episode, so that's boring. It's like
black t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Balding. So we're the
black
same.
T-shirts. I got the Black Sabbath shirt going on here.
Nice. So for everybody who's watching and listening, I look forward to seeing and reading your comments. What do you think of Warrant? What do you think of Jani Lane as a singer, a songwriter? What do you think of the songs on this album? Which songs do you like? Which ones do you dislike? Of course, we'd love to see your ratings and rankings as well. We look forward to that. To the LaRussa brothers, I always enjoy this. This has been a blast as always. I appreciate you guys both coming on. And to everybody else, we'll leave with Double Ringo, the classic. Pete's not going to do Double Ringo. Okay, I was like, Pete, you got to do Double Ringo. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Later.
Bye.
Alrighty, there you have it. Let us know what you think. Was Warrant an underrated band of the late 80s and early 90s? Or were they simply just part of a saturated market? Let us know your opinion. All opinions are welcome, and of course, there's no right or wrong answer. Also, let us know what you think of the Dog Eat Dog album. Do you think if it was released in the mid-80s that it would have been a bigger hit? What do you think of the songs on this album? And which are your favorites, and which ones do you not like? Again, we look forward to your opinions. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button below. If you're listening to one of my podcasts, subscribe over there as well. Also, head on over to Facebook and follow my page, The Rock Experience with Mike Brunn, where each and every day we talk about all the rock and roll music that you love. You could also follow me on Instagram and Twitter as well. That's it for this episode. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. See you all next time.